The slap wasn't supposed to change anything. Iris was just defending herself against a cruel woman drunk on power. But when Kim Ha-jin walked into that hall and saw the mark on Iris's face, something snapped inside the Mafia boss everyone feared, and suddenly the broken engagement, the family war, and the kidnapping that would follow all became inevitable. Because powerful men don't just protect what they want, they burn down entire empires for it. Welcome to Black and Soul TV. Please like, share, and subscribe. Her hand moved before her mind could catch up. The sound of Iris's palm connecting with Seonmi's cheek was louder than the first slap. Sharper, more final. The world stopped. Seonmi stumbled backward, her hand flying to her face, her eyes wide with shock. A red mark began to bloom across her pale skin. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Around them, Iris heard the collective gasp of the staff, the sharp intake of breath that spoke of absolute horror. No one touched Seonmi. No one defied her. No one dared. Until now. I am not your property, Iris said, her voice quiet but clear in the silence. I am not your punching bag. I am a human being, and you will not put your hands on me again. Seonmi's shock transformed into pure fury. Her face flushed crimson, her hands clenching into fists at her sides. How dare you? She shrieked, her composed facade completely shattered. Do you know who I am? Do you know where you are? I know exactly where I am, Iris replied, meeting her gaze steadily. I'm in a house where fear has been mistaken for respect for far too long. You're finished. Seonmi's voice rose to a scream. I'll have you thrown out onto the street. I'll make sure you never work again. What's going on here? The voice was quiet, almost soft, but it cut through Seonmi's tirade like a knife through silk. Every person in the hall immediately straightened, their faces going pale. Iris turned toward the source of the voice, her heart suddenly pounding. Kim Ha-jin stood at the entrance to the hall, still wearing his dark suit from whatever business had occupied his morning. He was tall, his presence commanding despite the gentleness of his voice. His handsome face was expressionless, but his dark eyes were sharp, taking in every detail of the scene before him. The red marks on both women's faces. Seonmi's disheveled fury. Iris's steady defiance. The terrified staff frozen against the walls. Ha-jin, Seonmi's voice immediately shifted, becoming softer, almost pleading. She rushed toward him, her hand still pressed to her cheek. Thank God you're here. This woman, this maid, she attacked me. She struck me in front of everyone. Ha-jin's eyes moved from Seonmi to Iris. Their gazes met, and Iris felt something pass between them, some wordless communication she couldn't quite name. She had seen him around the estate over the past 3 weeks, always from a distance. He was nothing like his fiancée. Where Seonmi ruled through fear and cruelty, Ha-jin commanded through quiet authority. He spoke to his staff with respect, never raised his voice, and yet everyone obeyed him instantly. Is that true? He asked Iris directly. Did you strike Mississippi Park? Iris could have lied. She could have denied it, played the victim, thrown herself on his mercy. That's what everyone expected. That's what any sane person would do when confronted by the head of Busan's most powerful crime family. Instead, she lifted her chin. Yes, sir, I did. A murmur rippled through the staff. Seonmi's eyes gleamed with triumph. After she struck me first, Iris continued, her voice steady. I will not be physically assaulted by anyone, regardless of their position in this household. The triumph in Seonmi's eyes flickered. She's lying, Seonmi spat. Is she? Ha-jin's question was directed at the staff. His gaze swept across the 15 people lining the walls. Did anyone see what happened? No one moved. No one spoke. Iris could see the fear in their eyes, the desperate desire to become invisible. They had all seen Seonmi strike first, but testifying to that would mean becoming her next target. In this house, survival meant silence. The odds seemed to be against Seonmi. Can Ha-jin love someone who has no regards for anyone, who is proud and always gets her way? Did this incident make Ha-jin develop feelings for Laris? Hit that subscribe button. Let's uncover together. Well, Seonmi's voice turned sharp. Speak up. Tell him what happened. Still, no one moved. That's enough, Ha-jin said quietly. He turned to Seonmi. Show me your hand. What? Your right hand. Show it to me. Confused but compliant, Seonmi extended her hand. Ha-jin examined it briefly, then looked at Iris's face, at the red mark on her left cheek. Then he looked at his fiancée's face, at the matching mark on her right cheek. The angle is consistent with you striking first with your right hand, he said calmly, as if discussing the weather, and Miss Iris responding in kind. The force appears similar, the marks almost identical in size and shape. Siamese mouth fell open. You can't possibly believe. I believe the evidence. Hajin's voice remained quiet, but something in his tone made Siamese fall silent. And I believe that in this household, no one has the right to strike another person, regardless of their position. She's a maid, Siamese sputtered. She's nothing. She's a human being, Hajin interrupted, his voice harder now. And she deserves the same respect as anyone else under this roof. The silence that followed was deafening. Iris watched as emotions warred across Siamese's face. Shock, fury, humiliation, and something that looked almost like fear. You're taking her side. Siamese's voice dropped to a whisper. Over mine. I'm not taking sides, Hajin replied. I'm stating facts. You struck her first. She defended herself. If you want to live in this house, you will learn that violence is not how we solve problems here. Not how we. Siamese let out a harsh laugh. Hajin, do you hear yourself? You're a crime lord. Violence is your business. My business is separate from my home, he said coldly. In this house, everyone is treated with dignity, including the staff. Especially the staff. Siamese's face had gone from red to white. Your mother will hear about this. I'm sure she will. Hajin's expression didn't change. He turned to Iris. Miss Iris, are you injured? The question caught Iris off guard. In 3 weeks, no one had asked after her well-being. No one had cared whether she was hurt or tired or struggling. And now the master of the house, the man everyone feared, was asking if she was all right. I'm fine, sir, she managed. Good. He glanced at the mark on her cheek, and something flickered in his eyes. Anger, perhaps, or regret. You may return to your duties. And Miss Iris? Yes, sir. In this house, you have the right to defend yourself. Always. Before Iris could respond, Hajin turned back to his fiancée. Siamese, we need to talk. In private. He walked toward the west wing, not looking back to see if she followed. For a moment, Siamese stood frozen, her face a mask of humiliation and rage. Then she turned to Iris, and the look in her eyes was pure venom. This isn't over, she whispered, low enough that only Iris could hear. Not even close. Then she spun on her heel and followed Hajin, her designer heels clicking angrily against the marble. As soon as they disappeared around the corner, the hall erupted into whispered chaos. The staff members crowded around Iris, their faces a mixture of awe and terror. Are you insane? Hissed Mrs. Choi, the head housekeeper, a woman in her 50s who had worked for the Kim family for 20 years. Do you have any idea what you've just done? She slapped me, Iris said simply. Was I supposed to just accept that? Yes, Mrs. Choi grabbed Iris's arm, her grip surprisingly strong. Yes, you were. We all do. That's how we survive here. I didn't come to Korea to survive, Iris replied. I came to live. A young maid named Jiwoo stared at her with wide eyes. But Mississippi Park, she'll destroy you for this. She destroys everyone who crosses her. Then she can try. Iris gently extracted her arm from Mrs. Choi's grip. But I won't spend another day pretending to be less than what I am to make someone else feel powerful. You don't understand, whispered Mr. Lee, the elderly butler who had served 3 generations of Kims. This household, this family, they're not like normal people. The rules are different here. Respect isn't different anywhere, Iris said. And neither is dignity. She walked away from the group, heading back toward the staff quarters, her heart pounding. Her cheeks still stung, but that wasn't what made her hands tremble. She had just slapped the fiancé of a mafia boss. She had defied the woman who ruled this house through terror. She had probably just signed her own death warrant. But as she replayed the moment in her mind, the look on Siamese's face when Iris's hand connected with her cheek, she couldn't find it in herself to regret it. Some lines couldn't be crossed. Some indignities couldn't be accepted, even if standing up for yourself meant losing everything. In the study on the west wing, Hajin closed the door behind Siamese and moved to stand behind his desk. He didn't sit, didn't offer her a seat. The silence stretched between them like a taut wire. You're angry, Siamese finally said, her voice carefully controlled now. I understand the situation was unfortunate. Unfortunate, Hajin repeated, his tone flat. That's your word for it. She was insubordinate. She's been here 3 weeks, Hajin interrupted. 3 weeks, Siamese. In that time, I've watched you systematically try to break her. The impossible tasks, the public humiliations, the constant criticisms. I've watched, and I've said nothing because I wanted to see if she would bend, if she would break. Siamese's eyes narrowed. And she didn't. Something that might have been admiration flickered across Hajin's face. Everyone else in this house lives in fear of you. They flinch when you enter a room. They scramble to obey your every whim, no matter how unreasonable. But not her. Is that what you want? CME's voice turned sharp. Someone who doesn't respect your authority, who defies the natural order of this household. I want people who respect me because they choose to, not because they're terrified of what I'll do to them if they don't. Hajin's voice was quiet, but there was steel beneath it. There's a difference between fear and respect, CME. Our marriage will work much better if you learn that difference. Our marriage, CME repeated, moving closer to him. That's what this is about, isn't it? Our family spent months negotiating this alliance. My father's connections in Seoul, your family's power in Busan. This marriage isn't about love, Hajin. It's about empire building. Will Hajin go against his family, his empire to be with Iris, a common maid? Hit that subscribe button. You don't want to miss as things get juicy. I'm aware, he said. Then why are you jeopardizing it over a maid? She was close to him now, her voice dropping to something almost seductive. She's nobody. She means nothing. But I'm going to be your wife, the mother of your children, the woman standing beside you when you rule this entire country. If you're going to stand beside me, Hajin said, stepping back from her, then you need to understand something. I don't rule through cruelty. I rule through loyalty. People follow me because they believe in me, not because they're afraid of me. Can you say the same? CME's seductive facade cracked. You're defending her. A black maid who's been here less than a month. Over me, your fiancé. I'm defending a principle, Hajin corrected. One that apparently needs defending in my own home. Your mother won't see it that way, CME said. My mother doesn't run this house. I do. Does she know that? CME's smile was cold. Because from where I'm standing, you seem to forget that you're not just the master of this estate. You're the heir to an empire, Hajin. And empires aren't built on respecting the feelings of servants. Get out, Hajin said quietly. What? Get out of my study. Now, before I say something we'll both regret. For a long moment, CME stared at him, her face a mask of barely controlled fury. Then she turned and walked to the door, her movements rigid with anger. But before she left, she looked back at him. This isn't about the maid anymore, she said softly. This is about whether you're strong enough to be the man your family needs you to be. Strong enough to rule. Strong enough to do what's necessary, even when it's cruel. If being strong means being cruel, Hajin replied, then I don't want that kind of strength. CME's laugh was bitter. Then you're weaker than I thought. And weak men don't survive in our world. She left, closing the door with exaggerated gentleness that was somehow more threatening than a slam. Alone in his study, Hajin moved to the window overlooking the grounds. From here, he could see the garden where the staff sometimes took their breaks, the long driveway leading to the main gate, the wall that separated his estate from the city beyond. His phone buzzed. A text from his cousin and lieutenant, June. Heard there was excitement at the house. Everything okay? News traveled fast in his organization. Hajin typed back. Handled. But was it handled? He had defended Iris publicly, had essentially taken her side over his fiancée's. In doing so, he had created a crack in the foundation of his engagement, had given CME ammunition against him, had probably set in motion events he couldn't yet foresee. And the worst part? He didn't regret it. There was something about Iris that had caught his attention from the first day she arrived. Not her beauty, though she was beautiful. Not her foreignness, though that certainly made her stand out in his thoroughly Korean household. It was something else. Something in the way she carried herself, the quiet dignity in her movements, the refusal to make herself smaller even when everyone around her was screaming at her to bend. He had been watching her for 3 weeks, he realized. Watching as CME tried to break her. Watching as she endured humiliation after humiliation with grace. Watching and doing nothing. Telling himself he was curious to see how long she would last. But that wasn't entirely true, was it? The truth was, he had been waiting. Waiting to see if she would fight back. Waiting to see if someone in his house would finally stand up to the tyrant he was engaged to marry. Waiting for an excuse to intervene. And today, Iris had given him that excuse. Hajin pulled out his phone again and dialed his head of security. I want protection on Iris. Discreet, but constant. If anyone attempts to harm her or force her to leave the estate, I want to know immediately. Yes, sir. May I ask why? She made an enemy today, Hajin said. A powerful one. I want to make sure she stays safe. After he hung up, he stood at the window for a long time, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. Somewhere in this house, CME was plotting revenge. Somewhere else, Iris was probably wondering if she had just made the worst mistake of her life. And Hajin was caught between them. knowing that the slap heard around the estate had changed something fundamental. The careful balance he had maintained, the delicate peace between duty and desire, between obligation and integrity, it was all crumbling. And he wasn't entirely sure he wanted to stop it. That evening, Iris sat in the small room she shared with Jiwoo, pressing a cold cloth against her cheek. The mark had faded to a dull red, but it still throbbed. Jiwoo sat on her own bed, watching Iris with a mixture of admiration and fear. "You should leave," Jiwoo said quietly. "Tonight, before Mississippi Park does something worse." "I'm not running," Iris replied. "This isn't about pride. This is about survival." Jiwoo's voice rose, then immediately dropped to a whisper. "You don't understand what she's capable of. Last year, a maid accidentally broke one of Miss Park's vases. Mississippi Park had her fired, then made sure she couldn't get work anywhere in Busan. The woman had to move back to her village in disgrace. Her whole family was shamed." "That's horrible," Iris said. "But it's also not my problem." "It will be your problem when she does it to you," Jiwoo insisted. Iris lowered the cloth and looked at her roommate. "Jiwoo, how long have you worked here?" 2 years. "And in those 2 years, have you ever stood up to her? Ever told her no? Ever defended yourself?" Jiwoo looked away. "It's not that simple." "It's exactly that simple," Iris said gently. "Every day you accept her cruelty, you teach her that it's acceptable. Every time you bow your head and say nothing, you give her more power." "Easy for you to say," Jiwoo muttered. "You can leave Korea anytime. This is my country, my home. I have to live here long after you're gone." The words stung, partly because they were true. Iris had come to Korea on a 2-year work visa, drawn by the promise of better wages than she could find back home. Her plan had been simple: work hard, save money, send some back to her family, and return home with enough to start her own business. She hadn't planned on encountering someone like C and me, hadn't planned on working in a mafia household, hadn't planned on any of this. But life rarely went according to plan. "You're right," Iris admitted. "I can leave. But while I'm here, I won't live on my knees. Not for anyone." A knock on the door made them both jump. Jiwoo rushed to open it, her face going pale when she saw who stood there. Mrs. Choi entered, her expression grim. "Miss Iris, Mr. Kim wants to see you." Iris's heart sank. "When?" "Now." In his study, Jiwoo grabbed Iris's arm. "Don't go. It's a trap. Mississippi Park probably convinced him to." "It's fine," Iris said, though her stomach churned with anxiety. She stood, smoothed down her uniform, and followed Mrs. Choi out of the room. The walk to Ha-jin's study felt endless. They passed servants who stopped and stared, their faces full of pity and morbid curiosity. No doubt rumors of her imminent firing, or worse, were already spreading through the household. By morning, everyone would know what happened to the maid who dared to strike back. Mrs. Choi stopped outside the study door. "For what it's worth," she said quietly, "what you did today, it was brave. Stupid, but brave." "Is there a difference?" Iris asked. "In this house, not usually," Mrs. Choi replied. She knocked, announced Iris, and left her at the threshold. Iris took a deep breath and entered. The study was elegant and understated, with dark wood furniture and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. Ha-jin stood by the window, his back to the door. For a long moment, he didn't turn around, and Iris stood there, uncertain whether to speak or wait. "Close the door," he finally said. Iris obeyed, her heart hammering. Was this where he told her to pack her things? Where he explained that despite his earlier defense, she had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed? "How's your face?" he asked, still not turning. The question surprised her. "It's fine, sir. Don't lie to me," he said. "It hurts," Iris admitted. "But I've had worse." That made him turn. His dark eyes studied her face, and she forced herself not to look away. Up close, he was even more striking than she had realized. There was something in his features, a combination of strength and gentleness that made it hard to reconcile him with the stories she had heard about the Kim family's business. "You've had worse," he repeated. "Should I be concerned about that?" "Just life experience, sir. Nothing to worry about." "Miss Iris," he said, "I called you here because I want to make something clear." He moved closer, and Iris's breath caught. What happened today cannot happen again. Here it comes, she thought. The ultimatum, the threat, the reminder of who held the power. "If someone strikes you again," he continued, "don't strike back. Come to me immediately. I will handle it." Iris blinked. "Sir, you were justified in defending yourself," Ha-jin said. "I want you to understand that. But next time, let me handle it. I won't have violence in my home, from anyone. That includes my fiancée. You're not firing me? Why would I fire you for defending yourself?" He looked genuinely puzzled. Because I hit your fiancée." Because I caused a scene. Because you refused to be a victim. Hajin shook his head. Miss Iris, I employ people here because they need jobs, not because I enjoy exercising power over them. You do good work. You're respectful to everyone except those who disrespect you first. And you have more backbone than most of my business associates. Why would I fire you? Iris felt something loosen in her chest, some tight knot of fear she hadn't realized she was carrying. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me. You earned your place here. He moved back to his desk, picked up a piece of paper. However, I am making some changes to your position. The fear returned. Changes? You'll no longer report to Mississippi Park. You'll report directly to Mrs. Choi, and through her, to me. Your duties will focus on the main house maintenance and library care. You'll have no direct interaction with my fiancée unless absolutely necessary. Sir, with respect, doesn't that just look like you're protecting me? I am protecting you, Hajin said simply. Mississippi Park is angry, and when she's angry, she's dangerous. Until she calms down, I'm keeping you out of her reach. I know you can handle yourself, he interrupted. You proved that today, but you shouldn't have to. Not in my house. There was something in his voice, some undercurrent of emotion that made Iris look at him more closely. His face was composed, but his eyes held a weariness, a sadness maybe, or a resignation. May I speak freely, sir? She asked. Always, he said. Why are you marrying her? The question hung in the air between them. For a moment, Hajin's composed facade cracked, and she saw something raw beneath it. Then he smiled, but it was a smile without humor. That's a complicated question with a simple answer, he said. Because it's what's expected of me. Because our families have been planning this alliance for years. Because in my world, love is a luxury and duty is everything. That sounds lonely, Iris said. It is, he admitted. Then, as if realizing he had said too much, he straightened. That will be all, Miss Iris. Mrs. Choi will brief you on your new duties tomorrow morning. Iris nodded and turned to leave, but his voice stopped her at the door. Miss Iris. Yes, sir. What you did today, standing up for yourself, refusing to be diminished, he paused. Don't lose that. No matter what happens, don't let anyone make you smaller than you are. Their eyes met, and something passed between them. Understanding, perhaps. Recognition. A sense that they were both trapped in situations not entirely of their own making. Both trying to maintain dignity in a world that seemed designed to strip it away. I won't, sir, Iris promised. You have my word. After she left, Hajin stood alone in his study, staring at the closed door. He had meant what he said. Iris had something rare in his world. Genuine courage. Not the kind born of stupidity or recklessness, but the kind that came from knowing your own worth and refusing to compromise it. It was admirable. It was dangerous. And it was exactly what he needed to see. His phone buzzed again. Another text from June. Mother knows. She's coming tomorrow. Prepare yourself. Hajin sighed. Of course she knew. Madam Kim had spies everywhere. And what had happened today was too juicy not to reach her ears immediately. His mother, the woman who had held the Kim empire together after his father's death, who had taught him everything about power and control, who believed that mercy was weakness and compassion was liability. She was going to be furious. Tomorrow was going to be a very long day. The following days brought an uneasy calm to the estate. CME maintained a cold, distant presence, speaking to Iris only when absolutely necessary and always with witnesses present. Iris settled into her new duties, finding unexpected pleasure in the quiet solitude of the library. It was a magnificent room with 2 stories of books, comfortable reading chairs, and windows overlooking the gardens. Hajin used the library frequently, often working late into the night. At first, Iris made herself scarce whenever he entered, not wanting to intrude. But one evening, about a week after the incident, he looked up from his papers and asked, "Do you read?" The question caught her off guard. "Yes, sir. I love reading." "What kind of books?" "Everything, really. Fiction, history, biography. Back home, I studied international business, but I've always loved stories." There was a pause. Then he said, "You're welcome to borrow anything from this library. I want these books to be read, not just displayed." "Thank you, sir," Iris said. "That's very generous." "It's practical," Hajin replied. "Books are meant to be shared." A few nights later, Iris was dusting the upper shelves when Hajin entered. She started to climb down, to give him privacy, but he waved her off. "Don't stop on my account," he said, settling into his usual chair with a stack of documents. They worked in comfortable silence for a while. The only sounds the whisper of turning pages and the soft brush of Iris's cloth against leather spines. Then Hajin spoke. My mother arrives tomorrow. Iris's hand stilled. I've heard, sir. Mrs. Choi mentioned it. She'll want to meet you, he said, to assess the situation, to decide what should be done. Iris climbed down from the ladder, her heart beginning to race. What do you think she'll decide? Hajin was quiet for a moment. My mother is practical. She'll see you as a complication, a threat to the alliance she's been building. She'll want you gone. And what do you want? Iris asked, surprising herself with her boldness. Hajin looked up at her, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. What I want, he said slowly, and what's best for everyone involved, may not be the same thing. Before Iris could respond, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Hajin's expression closed off, becoming the neutral mask he wore in public. You should go, he said quietly. Tomorrow will be difficult enough without giving my mother more ammunition. Iris nodded and left quickly, but the warmth of his gaze stayed with her long into the night. The next morning, Madam Kim arrived like a storm front. Her presence immediately felt throughout the entire estate. She was in her late 50s, impeccably dressed, her hair pulled back severely from her face. Everything about her radiated power and control. Iris watched from a second-floor window as the older woman swept into the house, CME trailing behind her like a shadow. Within the hour, all the staff had been summoned to the main hall for inspection. They lined up in neat rows, back straight, eyes forward. Madam Kim walked slowly down the line, her sharp gaze assessing each person. She paused when she reached Iris. So, she said, her voice carrying through the silent hall. You're the one who struck my son's fiancée. Yes, ma'am, Iris said, keeping her voice steady. After she struck you first, I'm told. Yes, ma'am, Iris repeated. Madam Kim studied her for a long moment. You're either very brave or very foolish. I haven't decided which yet. Perhaps both, ma'am, Iris said. A flicker of something that might have been amusement crossed Madam Kim's face. Then it vanished. We'll speak later. In private. She moved on, completing her inspection, then dismissed the staff with a wave of her hand. Iris returned to the library, her hands trembling slightly. An hour later, Mrs. Choi appeared at the door. Madam Kim wants to see you. In Mr. Kim's study. Now, this was it, Iris thought. The moment of judgment. She followed Mrs. Choi through the corridors, her mind racing. When she entered the study, she found not just Madam Kim, but Hajin and Seon-mi as well. Sit, Madam Kim commanded. Iris sat, keeping her spine straight despite the fear churning in her gut. You've created quite a situation, Miss Iris, Madam Kim began. My son's engagement is now the subject of gossip. His fiancée feels disrespected and unsafe in what should be her future home. And all because you couldn't control your temper. With respect, ma'am, Iris said quietly, I was defending myself from physical assault. Seon-mi scoffed. You should have accepted correction and moved on. Like a good servant. Like a human being with dignity, Iris corrected, looking directly at Seon-mi. Which apparently is something you don't understand. Seon-mi's face flushed with anger. How dare you? Enough, Madam Kim said sharply. She turned to Hajin. And you've made this worse by defending her. By changing her duties. By essentially rewarding her for violence. I rewarded her for having a spine, Hajin said calmly. Something in short supply around here. This insolence, Seon-mi began, but Madam Kim raised a hand, silencing her. After all the build-up and tension in the Kim household, what do you think Madam Kim will ultimately decide about Iris's fate? Will she side with tradition and her son's engagement? Or will she recognize something valuable in the woman who dared to stand her ground? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this story of courage and forbidden attraction, please like this video, share it with someone who loves a good romance, and subscribe to Black and Soul TV so you don't miss what happens next. Hit that notification bell to stay updated. I've made my assessment, Madam Kim said. Miss Iris, you were justified in defending yourself. Seon-mi, you were wrong to strike her. However, the situation has become untenable. This household cannot function with this level of discord. Therefore, I'm giving you both a choice. Seon-mi's eyes gleamed. Finally, some sense. Either Miss Iris leaves this estate immediately, Madam Kim continued, or Seon-mi, you learn to coexist with her respectfully. One of you must change your position. The room fell silent. What? Seon-mi sputtered. You're giving her equal standing with me? I'm giving you both a choice, Madam Kim said coldly. Miss Iris can leave with generous severance and a good reference. Or you can learn to treat your future household staff with the respect they deserve. The choice is yours, Seon-mi. But know this. If you cannot rule this household with grace and dignity, You will never be suited to stand beside my son. CME stood abruptly. This is outrageous. I'm calling my father. Do that, Madam Kim said. And tell him that the Kim family expects better from our alliances than petty cruelty and power games. CME stormed out, her fury radiating from every line of her body. Madam Kim turned to Iris. As for you, Miss Iris, consider this a warning. My son may be infatuated with your courage, but infatuation fades. If you stay, you'll face more than just CME's anger. You'll face scrutiny, jealousy, and dangers you can't imagine. Are you prepared for that? Iris met her gaze steadily. I didn't come here looking for any of this, ma'am. But I won't run from it either. We'll see, Madam Kim said. She looked at her son. Hajin, you're playing a dangerous game. I hope you know what you're doing. So do I, mother, he replied quietly. So do I. After Madam Kim left, Hajin and Iris were alone in the study. That could have gone worse, he said finally. Or better, Iris replied. She could have ordered me to leave. She wanted to, Hajin said. But she also respects strength. You stood your ground, and that impressed her. More than she'll ever admit. Iris sank into a chair, suddenly exhausted. This is getting complicated, sir. It was always complicated, Hajin said, moving to stand near her. The question is whether the complication is worth it. And is it? Iris asked, looking up at him. Hajin was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached out, his fingers barely touching her cheek, where the mark from CME's slap had finally faded. Every day I think about sending you away, he said softly. Putting you somewhere safe, somewhere far from all of this. And every day I realize I don't want you to go. His touch was gentle, reverent, and Iris felt her breath catch. This is dangerous, she whispered. I know, he said. For both of us. Then why? Because for the first time in my life, he interrupted, I want something just for myself. Not for the family, not for the business, not for tradition. Just for me. And that something is you, Iris. The confession hung between them, heavy with implications. Iris knew she should pull away, should maintain the distance between employer and employee, between the Mafia boss and the maid. But something in his eyes held her frozen. Sir, she began. Hajin, he corrected. When it's just us, call me Hajin. Hajin, she said, testing the name on her tongue. This can't happen. We can't. Can't what? He asked, his hand still cradling her face. Can't acknowledge what's been building between us since the day you arrived? Can't admit that there's something here worth exploring? I'm a maid, Iris said desperately. You're a crime lord. We're from completely different worlds. Then we'll build a new world, Hajin said. Together. It was too much, too fast, too impossible. Iris stood abruptly, putting distance between them. I need to think, she said. I need time to process all of this. Take all the time you need, Hajin said, though something in his eyes looked pained. But Iris, know this. I'm not going anywhere. And I'm not letting you go easily. Over the following weeks, the tension in the estate reached a breaking point. CME, furious at being essentially put on probation by Madam Kim, began a subtle campaign of psychological warfare. Nothing Iris could prove, nothing overt enough to warrant complaint, but a constant pressure nonetheless. Whispered comments, meaningful looks, small acts of sabotage like books misfiled in the library or cleaning supplies mysteriously going missing. But Hajin kept his promise. He was always there, always watching,